You're now listening to Titletown Transmission, the unauthorized and underground radio of the Green Bay Packers.
For the W presents the story of a team that grew out of a small port town.
80,000 tailgaters every Sunday.
Statues of legendary coaches Vince Lombardi and Curly Lambeau welcome those fans.
Owned by the citizens of every county in the state of Wisconsin. Reggie White.
Ty Summers.
Sean Jones.
That's a good one.
Santana Dotson.
Man, I'm just running blanks here, so I'm going to throw out another one. Jordan Love, and then Mason Crosby.
There we go. And we can start with Love today, Nick.
Oh, Love will
Before
find
I explain mine.
Before you start yours, you got explanations?
I've got an explanation of why Reggie White, Sean Jones, and Santana Dotson were listed, but I do think, Nick, you've been chomping at the bit to start telling us all what next season's going to look like.
Well, this is funny. The three that I picked, it actually has nothing to do with what I'm imagining for the future. That is the worst rated player at each side of the ball for the Packers this year on Pro Football Focus. So,
who was it?
Jordan Love.
Often
Often discussed on this podcast. Ty Summers. Often shit on this podcast.
I can't believe you got the snap count for that.
And then Mason Crosby. Yeah, Ty Summers. Well, let's say this. Ty Summers is the lowest rated person with us with the snap count. Well,
yeah.
He's got a rating, but he doesn't have a ranking. So that's the difference there. So the rank, either way.
Anyway.
Ty Summers sucks.
Yep.
Jordan Love, I don't think sucks that bad, but I also think he didn't play that well. We need more out of him if he's going to be the stud.
Right.
And Mason, I'd like to see go. But I really like what you were saying, John, about what I'm envisioning for the future here. I'm looking forward. I've been a big proponent of the blow it up after this season. I know you've heard me talk about it ad nauseum. Our viewers have seen me talk about it. Our listeners have heard me talk about it. I would like to see us move along. I know Aaron's the guy, and he's great, and all this. I just want to see what else is out there, and I want to do it when it's more prudent than to wait and try to stretch this into a Drew Brees situation where we're in salary cap hell 2 years from now, and we've got to gut basically half of our roster of star players. So that's where I am. How are you doing?
I think that is wise, but I have a slightly different approach in mind. I think that this team is good enough to compete as is. I think the talent level on both sides of the ball is to the point where league average, even below average quarterback play, if it's like clutch enough, could vault this team to a surprise Super Bowl berth next year without Aaron Rodgers and without Devontae Adams.
Well, and honestly, I absolutely agree with that sentiment. But when I'm talking about like blowing it up, it's guys with names, right? So like Rodgers would be one of those guys.
Yep.
But that's why I'm saying when it's prudent to do so.
Yep.
A lot of teams, I feel like in this era, would try to wait a couple years, continue to hold on to some of these players.
Yep.
Like a guy, like I think about Zadarius, his contract. But yeah, so to your point, I agree with that sentiment, and that's kind of why I want to see us. Let's call it a surgical blow up, right?
Yeah. I think we have the opportunity with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams under team control right now to set ourselves up pretty well to both win this season and set ourselves up to continue to compete with even the teams that are rebuilding now as far as their future prospects as an organization go. I think what the Packers have built under Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur is sustainable excellence. Yep. And I think that they are doing it the right way. And that's, I guess, why I'll just hop over to my guys. Santana Dotson, Reggie White, and Sean Jones.
They didn't even play this year.
They did not play this year, but they were three of the starting four for the most dominant defensive line in Packer history dating back at least till the 60s.
But you left Gilbert off the list.
Well, here's why. Because all three of those guys were unsigned free agents that we brought in. And the difference that
Gilbert was also a free agent, right?
Gilbert was a free agent, but I believe he was
he was with Minnesota before he came to us.
Okay.
I'm just being a smartass. Anyway, get to your point. I'm just being a smartass.
Well, and quite frankly, Reggie White, Sean Jones, and Santana Dotson were all better than Gilbert Brown too. So
and those were big free agent acquisitions.
Huge. That's what I mean. Huge free agent acquisitions. And what I hearken the Packers to do moving forward is to invest in that type of player with your money. Invest into the type of guy that is just physically dominant on the defensive side of the ball on the front seven. The rest of this unit is ready to compete right now. I think even if just plug in, insert random quarterback, starting caliber quarterback here. But the one part of this team that could vault us over the top is that defensive line. So I guess with the resources that you're talking about creating, I'd like to see some investment on down defensive linemen to help Kenny Clark out. I think the guys we had did an admirable job. But I think that if we gave Kenny Clark another stud or two next to him, on top of Rashawn Gary, on top of a guy like Chris Barnes who can blitz very well, on top of a guy like Soup, we got to bring back Soup. But I just think that is the only spot on this team that I think is not up to a level that it creates an advantage almost every single week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like that's always a goal, right? I think there's always going to be some position groups that fall behind in this NFL just because of the way the salary cap works. But the other thing too is that after this year, like let's say Devontae goes, Lazard's contract is up, Marquez Valdez-Scantling's contract is up. We're likely to see Cobb go, at least if I have my way and I'm trading him out on Madden, which I did. So we're likely to see, like, I will tell you this. I actually on Madden, all right, this is a whole stupid thing. I might do a Let's Play sometime. I don't know. But the long and short of it, I was actually able to retain Devontae, and our number 2 wide receiver was Amari Rodgers. But that was only because I was able to trade Aaron out, and I really wanted Jordan Love to have somebody to rely on. And, of course, he did. Obviously, that line was great. But, yeah, I think you're exactly right. One of the best things I was able to do is I was able to draft a left end, gave Clark some help. Those were 2 guys we could have on the field, a nickel.
Yeah.
But really what I'm saying is let's find a way to turn some of these guys. And, like, don't get me wrong, the Smith brothers have been awesome. Gary has ascended.
Definitely.
And then there's free agent options out there. Whitney Merciless, as much as he did get injured and missed a lot of time, he was solid the little bit he was there. A guy like Galea was pretty solid when we saw him there. I think we can find a way between draft picks or free agents that we can get some decent production on the other side until we really get a stud in there, especially if we can trade out some of these guys that could net us some actual some picks back in return. I mean, Aaron Rodgers obviously is at the top of that list. In my simulation, I traded out both the Smith brothers. Was able to get some picks there. But really and truly, look at this defense. You're talking about a team like if we can retain Devondre, we've got Gary there, who's been an ascending player. Like Gary was 5th overall amongst edge rushers this year, and I don't think we're scratching the surface of what he's capable of. But yeah, you think about a guy like Soup, Adrian Amos, Kenny Clark. We've got a lot of nice pieces, and we've got ascenders like Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander, who missed most of this year. That defense is pretty well set with other than, like you say, if we can put in another defensive lineman type of guy, and then I think on offense, that line is going to be Studley. We'll have Bakhtiari around for another year. Next year, we'll trade him out because we can sign Jenkins to a big contract and put him as like our premier lineman.
And guys like Larry Ogunjobi from Cincinnati, a guy like Quentin Jefferson from Las Vegas, these guys are unrestricted free agents. Sheldon Richardson in Minnesota.
We're talking about defensive guys still.
Yeah, like that defensive front line, like I said, that down lineman to pair with Kenny Clark.
I mean, and it might be Honey Pie.
Dude, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But I think that if we bring in a guy, especially a guy like maybe Ndamukong Suh, Like, that could be, I mean, I don't know how you'd score on us. And I think that bringing in we have to replace the veteran leadership that Aaron Rodgers.
I don't necessarily think we do, honestly. Like, Aaron has a lot of sway, but I think we have when we're talking about these guys, like, there's a number of dudes to me that could be household names. Like, I mean, we talk about a guy like an Adrian Amos, Rashawn Gary as he's ascending, Campbell, Kenny Clark. These guys to me are all on that caliber of leadership, but I think it's kind of like, let's turn the keys over. Let's give the kids the keys to the Corvette and see what they can do. Looking at the offense, we got similar, like, Aaron Jones, he is primed to be a leader of an offense. Like, and I'm not saying like he's gonna all run through him, but he provides the right swagger, the right mentality. Guys like Elton Jenkins that are ascending, like Elton Jenkins to me is like the next stud offensive lineman in the NFL, and we've seen it out of him. So, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like, if we can also it continue to improve in those types of roles,
I just think we're going to be a defensive team next year.
We almost have to be.
That's where I think the heart and soul of our team has to come from, and I think Jair's that guy for sure. But I think that keeping that in mind for me, for the Packers front office, would be well served to remember that then that's where the majority of the resources have to go. If we are doing kind of,
I don't think they do. I think we need to throw more. As silly as this might sound, John.
Yeah.
On weapons. Look at this. Mercedes Lewis is going to be retiring, like, possibly. I mean,
like our whole offense is going to be redone.
Who knows if Tunyon will be back? He's up for another contract.
Yep.
So there are real questions there.
Yeah. I don't think we keep Devontae, and I don't think we keep Rodgers, and I think we would keep Lazard and MVS if we've got a quarterback who can get it to him.
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah, maybe we would. And those guys would probably be an easier price tag.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a good point. Here's another thing, and this is kind of like a wild card that I had read somewhere. I wish I could remember where I read this because I thought it was brilliant. There was talk about converting Allen Lazard to tight end. He's already a big body wide receiver. Have him add just a little bit more weight. He'd be super quick at that tight end spot. He's already really physical. And I don't think that they'll actually go that route. But that might be something that I might have to try out on my simulation.
I think it's worth trying in Madden for sure.
But not in real life.
100%. I don't know. Well, I just wonder what our offensive identity is going to be next year. I feel like we're going to be a running team. And if that's the case, splitting him out wide and having one of the best run blocking wide receivers in football is really advantageous to breaking long runs. I think maybe continuing to focus on how well can our wide receivers block next year, like when we're bringing guys in. Malik Taylor, great blocker. I mean, I don't know. I don't think our offense
Amari Rodgers isn't going to get you there.
I don't know what Amari Rodgers is going to be.
Dude,
in the NFL.
I don't know that he's going to. I mean, unless
he's no Devin Hester.
Unless he's like purely a slot receiver, I just don't see. Well, here's the thing. This was a rookie year for him.
Yes.
And to be totally sure.
On a good team.
Well, and Randall Cobb took over the snaps that would have gotten to him early on. He made a lot of costly mistakes. And, I
don't know. He did not show
not look good.
Flashes of brilliance.
No, I'd rather have Ty Montgomery back. That's the category that those guys are in right now.
Yeah.
So,
it's dark times in Green Bay.
I don't think it's that dark though. Like, honestly, we've got a really nice young core. Like, Kenny Clark is like our savvy veteran. He's been in the league for like 6 years, but we also drafted him at like 19, so he's like 25. Like
I mean, dark times in like an uncertain period awaits of what our team will look like next year. But I think it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, that's what I'm all about. The one thing that's super exciting, John.
What?
We hired a special teams coordinator this week, like an actual guy that can do it, Mr. Rich Bisaccia.
Bisaccia for everybody out there. The name is Bisaccia.
Yeah, and you may know him from taking over for John Gruden for the Raiders. And frankly, he got the Raiders to the playoffs.
He did a great job.
I mean, what more can you ask? That team was kind of devastated, but Rich Bisaccia, known for being a great special teams coach. So now we're looking at a guy that, super seasoned in the NFL.
Yes.
Matches one of our major needs.
Yes.
And we talked about a couple years ago, Rizzi, ended up going to the Saints, another great special teams coordinator. I like the trend of Matt LaFleur getting his guy. I think that's been a good trend for us.
I like that. I will say that I do wonder if like some sort of blood curse was made regarding the special teams of the Green Bay Packers when we won the Super Bowl in 1996, that we would not have an above average special teams after that for some allotted period of years. Because Nick, if he's able to come in here and give us like top 13 in the league.
See, and I don't even care how special teams has been so phased out in the NFL. Like,
especially for Packer fans.
Well, but like in general, it's been like there's not even returns anymore. Like
except for against Packers,
it's been so phased out in the NFL. Now you're talking about like last year was a really bad special teams year for us,
and the year before.
There's this thing that we do in Green Bay where Mason Crosby misses a bunch of kicks and we're all like, oh my God, the sky is falling. This isn't a cursed position. This is a position that we just haven't put any real effort into. I would
all the way through the McCarthy.
Well, that's what I'm saying
too.
So, I mean, I don't think it takes a lot to get an above average special teams in this league.
Yeah.
And I also would hope, because this is one of the things I did in my simulation, I would hope that we let Mason Crosby take a walk.
Right.
I would like to see that happen. So get a better kicker in there. I'm still not.
He should have been gone after the Cincinnati game.
But I feel like by putting the resources there, that's enough to get us middle of the pack. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's what I'm saying. I guess that's what my point is that
I don't think it's cursed. I don't think it's cursed as much as it's been an afterthought.
Well, Bisaccia will be the canary in the coal mine for us, Nick, because we know going into this that this guy is like a competent special teams coach. And an absolutely
we've not had that period
qualified individual for the job. So if he fails and we are, because Nick, I wish I could.
Doesn't that make a difference though? Nick, like who's the last like special teams coordinator that Green Bay brought in that you knew?
Nick, I don't know any special teams coordinators except for that John Harbaugh's guy is really good.
Well, John Harbaugh was a special teams coordinator. So
right.
Is his guy good or is Harbaugh the one that's good?
Either way.
And
either way, Nick, I know not many special teams. The fact that I know who Maurice Drayton is, it's kind of one of those things where if you know who they are,
it's because they're really bad.
It's because they're bad. Like you shouldn't notice them. At the very worst, you shouldn't notice them. Every once in a while, you might have a team that's really good at special teams. Rex Ryan's Jets, I know, we're really good at special teams. Who was coaching that? I don't know. But
anybody with Pat McAfee.
Right. Marty Schottenheimer teams seem to have good special teams a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no, these are just like
it's
anecdotal.
All conjecture, yeah.
Yeah. So.
But one thing that I do know is that the Packers have had by far the worst special teams as far as kick coverage and as far as field goal kicking over the last 3 years, with the exception
what's the metric that you rate that on though? When you say by far, what's that based off of?
Total touchdowns given up in a season,
and what's the metric?
Well, that's what I was saying is I don't have the stat in front of me. If you'd like me to pull it up, but here's it's double digits for the Packers given up to single digits for the rest of the NFL over the last 3 years.
Well, here's what I want to say. It's like we say these things because it's like by far the worst.
No, it is.
But it's not. It's not. We were terrible this year. We might be the worst special teams this year. I would grant you that. But it hasn't been a thing where we're by far the worst team. Now, we're not a top team. We're probably not even an average team. But I'm going to say going ahead, this whole thing is because it was so in the forefront, because we see things like the 2 blocks in that divisional game and we freak out and we think about the most recent disaster that we witnessed. But we have to remember that early on this season between Borky and Crosby, before Crosby started missing him, we were like, this is great. So I think this year for sure, it probably bears out. I don't know what metrics there are other than blocks and misses and stuff.
You keep going because I'm gonna have the stat for you for total.
So what's
touchdowns.
So what's the stat that we're talking about?
It's total return touchdowns given up.
Okay, So, but like, okay, so that's basically we've had the most special teams touchdowns on us plus minus.
We've had more than the rest of the NFL combined over the last 3 years.
Plus minus or
no, like total touchdowns that we've given up on special teams.
Okay, and what's the next one? Because then you say things like, well, let's see what the stat is, because this is like,
give me a second to find it.
And at this point in time, I guess I just thank you all for being here, because there's really nothing to talk about while we're looking for this obscure stat. So I just want to remind you that at the end of the day, when we're looking at these different things that have upset our lives in the sporting world, I'm always thinking about what perspective is positive. And to me, I think we want to believe like this has been a terrible time because it cost us that last game, and it definitely did. But also, I don't think we've been that bad to the point where we're so much worse than any other team. We're not good. I know that much.
No.
Maybe I'm splitting hairs here.
Hold on. So this season...
But even still, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Okay, but this is just like total
touchdowns given up, right? But is that net? So this is what I'm talking about. Like, okay, so like let's say we gave up 5 last year and the next closest team was 3. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but is that considered by far? And then does that fully equate to the depth of special teams, because we also have I don't know. So I guess whatever stat you're gonna pull up, I just want to say that this isn't the entirety of the explanation.
Well, here's a stat that indicates my point. So the Green Bay Packers allowed the most kickoff yards returned by a team in 2021 with 1,283 yards. Again, then last year in 2020 they gave.
But when you
the
say
most.
By far, what was the next closest?
In 2021, the closest was 1,200, so almost 100 yards less.
83 yards.
Yep, 83 yards less in opponent yards given up. And the kick return yards per game given up for the Packers were not that bad. So that means that there were long returns involved. And the long returns involved were when Minnesota returned a couple, when Chicago returned one, and then our punt return yards per game given up. Hold on. This is bad radio either way.
This is terrible.
But either way, we've been by far the worst kick coverage team in the NFL for the last 2 seasons when it comes to total points given up on those situations. And that's just total. That's just total points. This year and last year. And both years we
So where'd you get the last
yardage.
3 years?
Well, I haven't been able to do it all on the fly. Like, you're fact checking me. Like, if I fact checked you on, every single instance of you saying a single opinion, like the Packers special teams is by far the worst, and there's a tweet I can't remember, then it would get a little monotonous, and you'd have to run through each individual season.
I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is, like, this isn't a thing where the special
You're
team...
trying to downplay what I said, but what I said was right.
No, what I'm really trying to say is the special teams is not that important. I'm trying to minimize the amount that special teams is important. The Bears have had some incredible special teams for years.
On their good years.
But here's the thing is, like, I guess really what I'm trying to point to is the fact that special teams has really been minimized in today's NFL. And also allowing a bunch of return yards, especially when you talk about like games against the Vikings where we allowed some big returns. To me, this is not a special teams that fails consistently. It's a team that fails repeatedly. So that is to say that when we know how to do it right, we have the capability to do it right. However, we so frequently did it so terribly.
So terribly.
And I guess that's more what I'm trying to say. It's like, to me, there's been lapses as opposed to like this is a team that's without repair. So I'm not trying to undermine what you're saying, even though I am. But ultimately what I really am trying to say is like fixing a problem on special teams is a lot easier than fixing a problem in like your run blocking scheme.
All I'm saying, Nick, Desmond Howard may have done some sort of, and this will be the test because this is the first time that I've really paid attention to the special teams hiring. And this is the first time that I feel like we've hired somebody that's of note for the position. Yep. And if that's incorrect, then somebody let me know. But it doesn't matter to me because this is going to be my bellwether. If the Packers suck at kick coverage and blocking,
it's a cursed position.
Yeah, it's a cursed position.
An entirely reasonable.
Yep. Which is to come all the way back around. It's all cursed.
See, and I really don't think this is a cursed team. I just think it's not a team like as far as our special teams, we just have never put really any resources there.
Right.
But I don't think like this whole thing of like, let's call it like the cursed position. I'm kind of like, okay, well, I get it because we had a really bad year, but everything has been like memified in our world today where I'm like, it's really not that big of a deal. And special teams lapses are easy to fix.
Well, they didn't fix themselves all this year, that's for sure.
Well, of course not. You're taking not only the guy who was probably one of the worst last year, but you take his understudy and elevate him. So it should be no surprise, but at the time, was that as high of a priority as it is now? Well, obviously not.
Yeah.
So what I'm really trying to say, and I keep repeating myself, but ultimately I'm trying to add to this understanding of, hey, this is just because this is our most recent crisis. You know, if we don't have those 2 blocks in the divisional championship game, maybe we don't figure out this is our crisis till the Super Bowl when we miss the game winner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was definitely like something that was creeping around the margins the whole year.
And we talked about it all year.
Yeah.
And I probably even downplayed it at points throughout the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to admit that. I'll be the first to admit that.
Never have I cared so much about special teams except for the Virginia Tech teams of the 90s. They had a coach that was really good at special teams.
Man, I don't want to talk about Virginia Tech on this podcast ever again.
Not a Hokie fan?
I'm just sitting here like, why,
More
dude?
of a Cavalier guy.
It's called For the W, not For the Half W.
That's what special teams does to people. It gets people really off track.
It certainly does. If there's any,
like, this isn't even football. Why are we talking about it?
If there's any trend we've figured out about special teams, it's that it gets people a little off track. But I will say this one point, and this is, doesn't prove or disprove anything for either of us, but I will say this, with the changes to special teams over the last bunch of years and like removing like wedge schemes for blocking.
Yeah.
I will say this much is our failings say much more about our ability to block on like punts and kicks and our coverage ability. Our return, everybody has suffered as far as being able to return punts and kicks unless they've been playing against us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just been absolutely horrible.
Because when Desmond Howard played, you could set up 5 guys in a wedge. That's not legal anymore. No. But anyway, we've gotten so far off in the weeds, John. I feel terrible for our listeners who are probably asleep at their keyboards right now.
Yeah, let's go to the Badgers, who are in a really tight one against Michigan State at the moment, up 55-51 in the second half, Nick.
And not only that, but we're going to have to drive by the very open, very serving open customers, Highway Harry's, right there in Johnson Creek on our way. We'll see you there, John.
All right, see you there, Nick.